Hey, Mike Carpenter here. Welcome back to For the Meeple, by the Meeple. Today we're taking a look at a small filler game called Welcome to the Dungeon. This is a fast-paced game of chicken, essentially, about taking a hero through a dungeon. Let's see if it's any good. Here are the components for Welcome to the Dungeon. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to receive a reference card that tells them how many of each type of monster there are in the game and how strong those monsters are. There are also cards that indicate if a player has successfully made it through the dungeon, and there is a monster deck with 13 cards in it and various types of monsters with different strength indicated in the top left corner. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to the players are going to decide one of these 4 heroes to use in the game. So for this round, we have decided to use the warrior. So we're going to put the warrior in the tokens in the middle of the table, and we'll take a look at these tokens. The warrior starts the round with 3 health points just on his token alone, but he also receives some armor and a shield that add to his health points. So now the warrior starts the round with 11 health points. He also has 4 items. He has a sword, a torch, a spear, and a grail. And what these do, these items allow the warrior to be more effective against certain types of monsters. So the Holy Grail will allow the warrior to defeat even-numbered strength without taking any damage from the monster. The Dragon Spear will allow the warrior to defeat the dragon and take no damage. And then the torch will defeat monsters with 3 or less. The Vorpal Sword defeats 1 monster that you choose before entering the dungeon. So the way that one would work is a player would announce a certain type of monster, and if there is a monster in the dungeon, when they come across it, it'll immediately be removed. Now, how do we determine who is going to go through the monster? Because this is not a cooperative game, this is a completely competitive game, but players are going to have the option to make the dungeon stronger or weaker for themselves. The players are going to shuffle the monster deck and put it in the middle of the table. On a player's turn, they have 2 choices. They can either draw a card or they can drop out. Now, the reason a player would drop out is they believe there are too many strong monsters already in the dungeon, and they don't think they can get through the dungeon successfully. And I'll show you how to go through the dungeon in just a moment. Now, the other option, if the player does in fact decide to draw a card, they then have to make another choice. They have to decide if they want to put that monster in the dungeon, and then their turn would end, or if they would like to keep that monster out of the dungeon. But to do so, they also have to remove one of these tokens. So let's say this player goes ahead and puts the monster in the dungeon. The second player draws an even number 4. Now that's kind of a strong monster, but it is an even number. And the warrior has the Holy Grail that defeats even-numbered strength monsters. So the player decides, well, it's probably still safe to put that one in there right now. The next player draws another even number. And this player sees that it's a very strong monster and it's even, but they decide they're going to take that card out of the game and take the Holy Grail with it. That changes the dynamics of the strategy in this round because now the player is vulnerable to both even and odd numbered monsters. So that play is going to continue like that until they get through the deck. So maybe we have all of those cards in the deck and 2 other cards have been removed. One being the Knight Shield token would be removed with that card, and maybe the defeat monsters 3 or less was removed with that card. Now, as players see that the dungeon is getting more difficult, remember they are going to be dropping out on their turn if they don't feel like they can get through the dungeon successfully. Now, at some point though, one player is going to be left to go through the dungeon, either by choice or because the other players have dropped out before him. What that player is going to do then is see what tokens are left. This one is the Dragon Spear that defeats the dragon. The player still has their armor, so the warrior has 8 life points. And they can defeat one monster that they choose before entering the dungeon. Now, to do that, the player is going to decide, well, I would like to defeat the first number 4 monster I come across. So as soon as
the cards are revealed one at a time. There's the 9. The player has the Defeat the Dragon, so he's going to remove that one immediately and retain his 8 life points. Next, the player is going to reveal a 1. There's no way for this monster to hurt this, there's no way for the warrior to kill this monster with any of his items, but it does not kill him either. So now he has 7 life points left, and that monster is done. Now we have a 2. The warrior typically would kill this with the Holy Grail, but since it was removed, he will take 2 more damage, and now he's down to 5. The next card's another 1. We see that it hurts him again, so now he's down to 4. And now we come across a 5. Now remember, the player at the beginning announced that he could kill a 4, but he did not say 5, and that is too much strength from this monster and would knock out all of the warrior's life points. So the warrior has died. The player has not successfully made it through the dungeon. What the player will do then is flip his reference card to the red side, indicating that he has lost once in the dungeon. If a player ever fails a second time while trying to go through the dungeon, they are eliminated from the game. However, if the player is able to successfully get through the dungeon, they will receive one of these cards, indicating that they've made it once, and if a player can ever get through the dungeon successfully twice, they will immediately win the game.
Because Welcome to the Dungeon is a small filler game, it's very easy to play this game multiple times in one sitting. Each round takes about 5 to 10 minutes, but within that time span, you get a lot of game out of this. There are several ways to approach even just one of the heroes. I can sit back and try to pump in the most difficult monsters if I draw them, or I can take them out and take some of the less useful tokens, or I could take some of the more powerful tokens away from the warrior. For such a small design, it is very well put together, and each of your decisions has a very large impact on the game. And not only large, but each of your decisions has a very proportional amount of influence on the round. You're very seldom taking a turn where you just draw a card, put it in the dungeon immediately. You typically have to think about what you're doing, even with the 1s, 2s, and 3s, because some of the warriors kill the monsters that are lower numbers very easily. You have to decide, do I want a lot of those in there and make it look like there's a lot of monsters, even though they're low, and maybe I get to go through the dungeon and I can wipe out a lot of those monsters very easily. So it's not like the 1s, 2s, and 3s are just pushovers. They definitely influence your approach to the game. And that's what makes this fun. Every decision has some type of influence on the round. And since there's only 13 cards, those decisions are very, very important to how the dungeon is going to be created. If you play with one hero the entire night, you're going to get a little bit of a samey feel. But since there are 4 heroes, if you mix up the heroes you're using throughout the night, it's definitely going to offer you a lot of variety and a lot of decisions. And for a game that takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes a round, the number of decisions you make is enormous, truthfully, and the meaningfulness that you do in those decisions is very large. So it's definitely a game that I am glad to own. I don't know that it's for everyone because the theme can be a little bit off-putting to certain people at times, but it's not such a thematic feel that people are going to get caught up in what they're doing of going through a dungeon. And it's more so just, hey, am I taking these pieces away? It becomes almost a number game, but a very simple mathy game. I definitely enjoy it, and I would definitely recommend it to those looking for a game like this. It is definitely not a disappointment. Definitely glad to have it. So, welcome to the dungeon. Give it a try if you're interested, and I will see you again next time. Thanks for watching.